Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Hello, everybody. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with a 10-year U.S. Air Force disabled veteran who is married to another veteran who served for 20 years, and she has a son in the Army as well, so military family. This athlete not only is a scholar with an MBA in organizational management and an athlete who has been competing for the last 10 years, but she is also a businesswoman, entrepreneur, inventor, and owner of TurnFit products, Swap Trap, and Yo Trap. She made her dreams a reality despite setbacks and having to figure it all out on her own. And I'm excited to welcome her to the show today to not only talk about her life as an athlete, but also as the business owner she is. So welcome to the show, Shonte Turner. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm so happy you're here. And before we get into everything, I always love to know what is something you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Right before I hit the stage, a ritual. Well, I don't know if it's really a ritual, but I kind of like to just be a little isolated. So I typically don't really get on my phone as far as social media much the morning of, and I really don't talk to too many people. I just kind of like to be in my zone. It's not like I'm so nervous or anything. I just kind of like to be present in the moment and just kind of in my zone. So I just keep my circle real close on show day.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And like I mentioned in the intro, I really want to talk to you about business a lot today. And I think it can inspire a lot of women listening. And given that, I'm a business owner myself, it's something that I'm excited to hear you talk about because I know how much you love empowering other women. But I'm just going to tease that for now because I want to get into your competition history a little bit because you actually started in figure and then switched to bikini in 2016 and then you turned pro in 2017. So what is it that you love about competing that keeps you going since you've been doing it for so long now?
There is actually no aspect of competing that I don't love. I started, my first show was November of 2007, and I didn't follow bodybuilding. I knew nothing about the sport. And a friend of mine who was stationed with me in Portugal, she kind of found out about it first, living I think she was in LA at the time, and she found out about Muscle Mania. And I went to visit her, and she's like, you have to do this competition thing. It's fitness. And if you do this, your whole life will make sense because right now you're just weird. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm just weird? She's like, well, you write down everything you eat. And this was before my fitness pal, before it was in style and cool to count macros. I mean, I have journals dating back to 2001 of what I was eating.
Wow.
Yeah, and so she's like, you go to the gym twice a day, you write down everything you eat, and right now it's like for nothing, you just seem a little weird, but like there would be purpose behind what you do. And so I just kind of, she's like, go back to Texas and find a show in your area. We'll just kind of go through this together. And that's initially what got me into it. But that was also on the heels of me separating out of the military. And that was the year I turned 30 and I had just got out the military. And for me, there was just some camaraderie that was no longer in my life and I was missing it. And so once I entered into competing, it just kind of filled that void of me kind of missing that camaraderie of the military, and it was a fitness base, so I was all about that. And then it was also something that my family was just very supportive with, and it was a time that was just mine. It was okay to be selfish. It wasn't about being a wife, a mother, an employee. It was okay to be selfish in that moment. So it never had anything to do about the end result. It was just all about the prep itself and just kind of being so focused on bettering myself.
I love that. The fact that you were already living the lifestyle and you didn't even know about bodybuilding. Like that's so
Knew nothing about it.
why were you tracking everything so meticulously then?
I was just focused on trying to improve and get a more, because I was just kind of a lanky, tall person. I want a more, athletic look. And so I was just, and kind of self-taught in that regard. I kind of ran the weight management program in the Air Force too while I was in Portugal, and so I was getting a lot of nutritional classes, the same classes that the doctors were getting, and I was intriguing, and so it just kind of made me start taking a better and closer look at my nutritional aspects of what I was doing. Before that, I was just writing it down just to have an idea of how many calories I was eating a day, but didn't really know the macro or micronutrients behind it. But once I started getting those classes, I started really being intrigued by the process and how the body could change. And so I just kind of went a little berserk with it.
That's awesome. No, I think that's super cool. And how funny that your friend was like, you need to do this and everything will make sense. And do you feel like that is what happened?
That's exactly what happened. And so that's why for me, it's not really that much of a sacrifice to compete. Sure, I would like to have, happy hours twice a week and, drink with my friends every now and then. But it's not really that much of a sacrifice because when I take time away from the stage, that's all I'm doing is taking time away from the stage. I'm not taking time away from the lifestyle. There's still probably going to be 2 to 4 days a week. I'm doing 2-a-days, and I still train 7 days a week all year round, no matter what the end goal as far as competing is.
Definitely. It's already your lifestyle. The stage is just,
Yeah.
I used to always tell myself like, the stage is just another Saturday. It's just another
Yeah.
Saturday. It's an opportunity to do something different, and there's no change in lifestyle between then and any other day. So aside from the fact that you've been maintaining this lifestyle for so long, even before bodybuilding, but how do you think you have evolved as an athlete when it comes to your overall approach and mindset and maybe even outlook on the sport?
Well, of course, I was really green when I first started. So you come into this health and fitness world, with a health and fitness mindset into bodybuilding and thinking that's what it's about. This is my opinion. To me, bodybuilding is about fitness and building a body by almost any means necessary. It's not really about health. And that was something I wasn't really aware of coming into the sport. I mean, you can try to do it as healthy as you can, but let's just face it, a woman with that low of a body fat is not a healthy thing. The extremes we take to get there is not necessarily a healthy thing that you need to try to sustain, for a long period of time. So in that regard, I was a little green coming into it thinking, oh, this is really about health and fitness. No, it's more about fitness and the art of building a body. And as far as evolving as an athlete, because I've been doing it so long, I have pretty much done every diet out there. I'm pretty loyal to coaches. So I've only had really 3 real coaches, but I've done I worked with Dave Colombo, the keto guru that just kind of really put that on the map to me, the bodybuilding community. And so I've worked with him for a prep and, have done the keto diet, and I know what that does for my body. I was with Bombshell for 3 years, and when I was with them, this is all when I was bigger. I've been on the long cardio and the 7 to 8 meals a day, and so now I'm with my coach, Dana Segovia, and so he has his philosophy. But so I've just been able to kind of really hone in on like what really works for me, what's part of the hype of just, kind of looking the part and, bragging about drinking 3 gallons of water a day, but for me, does it really take all that? No, not really. So I think I've just evolved into my own space in this sport and just kind of figuring out what works for me and not having to get so deep into the social media frenzy over this whole competition world and trying to like literally, I don't even necessarily look at or follow people that are like the top dogs in the sport that most people probably are really inspired by. That's not really what inspires me. It's like the everyday person, everyday mom that's just very relatable to me and my lifestyle. That's what inspires me. So I think I've just more or less evolved as a person and as a businesswoman and just as a wife. And everything that we go through getting ready for a show, that discipline and that sacrifice kind of transpires in other aspects of our life. And that's why I love prep so much. And that's why it's so important. And why, when I set a big goal for something outside of fitness, I jump into prep as well, because that discipline just spills over to every aspect of my life. So I think it just has made me just evolve. As far as an athlete, being able to just trust the process a little more and trust myself and just know what works for me and not need so many outside influences to make it to that stage.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So much of what you said, I'm just like, okay, I love that because one, I think it takes well, hold on, how do I want to say this? I think now, I'm like, wait a minute, let me back this up. you talked about social media, which I think now a lot of girls go on social media and play the comparison game, not necessarily based on size or shape. We know this is already happening, but I think
Mhm.
now in terms of process, oh, well, my coach is having me do this and yours is having me do, or yours is having you do that. Is my coach wrong? Is your coach wrong? I have the best coach.
Mhm.
No, I have the best coach. And it's so dumb because it's like, why have we forgotten to just go, hey, what's actually working for my body? What's worked for me in the past, or what can I
Mhm.
try and see how it impacts me now? And I love that that's one of the ways you've evolved. And I also think it's really cool how you get inspired by, the everyday people. And
Mhm.
could not
Absolutely.
I could not agree more with you too on what you said about how the discipline required for prep translates into every other area of your life. And
Mhm.
that's something I've noticed too. And I think that it's really an empowering part of the process.
Absolutely.
So
Like I tell people all the time, if you prep for a show and you don't grow and evolve as a person outside of fitness, there's something wrong with you. Like it forces you, like it forces you to go there and to sit with yourself in times that you probably typically wouldn't do that. And it just, I mean, I just freaking love it. And my husband actually, he's a pro as well, but he likes prep, but he hates game day.
that's so
Like
funny.
he doesn't. Yeah, he loves the prep of it, but he hates the show day. And like he's actually prepping with me right now, but he is not convinced he's getting on stage this year. So it's just, it's just more or less about that time with yourself. And if you, like I said, if you don't evolve as a person, then there's something seriously wrong with your process. And like you said about, I think I touched on when being in it so long and have followed three coaches and different philosophies. In the end, and in reality, I pretty much looked my best and great with all these different philosophies, except keto wasn't quite for me and the way my genetics are set up. But at the end, so that just goes to show that there are 100,000 different ways to get to that look on show day. It's just really a matter of what works for you and what kind of sacrifice can you stomach.
Yeah, and like exactly. No, there's no better way to say it. I have nothing to add to that. That's exactly it. That's all it is. And I think that that's awesome that you're promoting that and you're sharing that and you're living proof that that is the case. And
Mm-hmm.
what you said about the if you don't evolve on prep, that really stuck with me because I think some girls actually don't. And I want to say that it's because they get so sucked into the prep that they actually forget about these other areas of their life instead of
Mm-hmm.
utilizing that prep discipline and saying, because I've been practicing it so much with prep, I can actually apply it. Or, with prep, you need like your schedule to be really on point. Your meals are on point. Like things are dialed into almost the minute, you've got a lot on your plate,
Mm-hmm.
which I think helps you then to evolve, like you said. Um, but I do think some girls struggle with it just because they get sucked into the prep where then they say, well, nothing else matters except for the prep.
And not for nothing, I think that takes time and maturity in the sport, just like everything else. Just like I attribute that to like when you first get saved for the first time. I don't know if you're into religion, but you go in and you're so tunnel vision, you can't see anything else around you. And I think it's the same thing with prep. They're just so engulfed in the process and the glitz and the glam of it and trying to do everything right. It's probably hard for them for it to spill into other aspects of
Yes.
their life. So I think it's just kind of, I'm not saying I was like that my first season, but just over
Over
time,
time.
I think you kind of learn how to balance both. And then I think at that stage of the game is where it's probably easier for you to just kind of evolve as a person, as a more well-rounded person.
Yes, totally agree. Like I remember my first prep, I was like tunnel vision baby, like nothing else matters. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I was also in like a transitionary time in my life where it's like I could do that. Um,
Yeah.
and you said something like your husband doesn't like show day, and I think that's funny because I was just talking to someone in the gym the other day, and she's like, "Man, I love the prep, but the show day," and I'm curious to know why he doesn't like it.
He's really an introvert. He's not a show pony like that. He doesn't smile. He's not even gonna try to force it on stage. He's just not like like into that. And how can I say it in a nice way? He doesn't really care to be around people that much. So it's
He's
just all that.
introverted, yeah.
yeah, so everything that comes with it, he is just not into it. And so, and he's not really competitive, and neither am I, so that's probably a good thing, but we're not really competitive people with other people like that. So when people are just overly passionate and threatening you with a good time with their physique and what they've changed and how, you know, they're going to bring it this year, you're going to get it. I'm just like, we're just not those people. So like, okay, dude, we get it. You're looking great.
I
So
love
he
that.
just, yeah, he just hates all of that. So he, like I said, he's actually prepping right now, but he's like, I don't know that I'm going to get on stage. And he definitely has determined that he's not going to compete unless it's a show we're doing together. He actually didn't start competing until he turned 50, which is crazy, and turned pro
Oh
8
my
months later. And I
gosh.
had been at it for like 10 years. I'm like, really? We turned pro the same day, but I've been trying for 10 years. But he did a show last year without me, and for him, he was like, it just wasn't the same. And I don't even think it resonated with him that he got into this to be closer to me. And so when I wasn't there, I didn't even go to the show because I was working. He was just like, it was depressing. It was epic
Oh.
failure. Like, he's just like, it's not the same without you. So not only does he hate game day, I wasn't even there for it. So he was like, yeah, he's over
Yeah, no, for sure.
it.
That's cool though that you guys can do it together if he wants to and you guys choose to. And I think that's awesome. You guys turned pro at the same time.
Yeah,
That's
that was crazy.
yeah, that is crazy. And I mean, obviously, like you had a journey to getting your pro card. You had decided to make the switch to bikini, and I believe that in an interview somewhere else you said it was because of your
hmm
genetics and what would be required
hmm
to build for your body to meet the figure
hmm
criteria. I was actually curious, did the judges ever suggest that you switch, or did your coach at the time suggest it, or were you just looking at it like, okay, this is the division I'm gonna go into?
So here's what's funny. Actually, because obviously when I first started competing, bikini wasn't out, and so bikini came out in 2010. And I was with Bombshell at the time, and I asked them, you know, do you think I should switch to bikini? I'm like, oh no, 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 your shoulders are just too broad, too big. Like, there's no way you can do bikini. I'm like, oh, okay, didn't think anything of it, because mentally I'm more of a figure competitor. Like, I'm not that flirty, fun, toot your booty up type of personality. But I mean, I'm working on my swag, but that's really not my personality. Like, I prefer figure training really hard, which the good news is I can still train like I'm figure because I just don't genetically grow like that. So I can still train like I'm figure. But I was just a figure girl at heart. So when I mentioned it to my Bombshell coach, they said, "No, you're not bikini at all." I left it at that. And then I actually brought it up to Damien, and he was just like, "Oh God, no!" And since I had heard it before, I didn't think anything about it. He's like, "Oh God, no, you're definitely not figure. I mean bikini." So I'm like, "Okay, fine." So what happened was, at the end of my 2016 season, my knees were just getting worse and worse, and that's part of my disability, and my back was getting worse and worse. And but actually, a judge did, and it was so funny because in 2010 at North Americans, I was at a restaurant in the mall getting a salad, and one of the judges came up and he was like, you know, I wanted to talk to you. You know, have you ever considered bikini? And I said, I have. However, my coaches don't think I'm bikini, and I have a lot of stretch marks from having my son. And to me, bikini is about being pretty in a bikini, and figure was more about the physique in my mind. And he's like, and I was so insecure back then about my stretch marks. And he said, you have stretch marks? And in that moment,
Oh
I'm just
my
like, are you kidding
gosh.
me? All these years, like, I have been so insecure. And as a judge, you didn't even know I had them. And he's like, honestly, we can't even see that from the judge's table. I'm like, are you serious? So I raised my shirt up. He goes, oh, wow, you do have stretch marks. And so it was almost, his face kind of made like, okay, now I see your point. That was kind of what his face did to me. And so we just kind of left it at that. So when I actually made the decision to switch, I didn't actually even tell my coach. I used to actually coach as well. So I know how to get myself ready for a show. So at the end of 2016 season, I decided that I lived in Texas, I was going to hop in a show, prep myself for bikini, and do it in Oklahoma because those judges don't know me. And I was scared that the Texas judges, because they were so used to seeing me in figure, they would automatically think, what is she doing? She's figure. So I reached out to that judge and I said, hey, guess what? I'm thinking about switching to bikini. He said, send me pictures. And he goes, oh my God, you're so beautiful in bikini. You should have done this years ago. Okay, great. So then I started getting nervous close to my show. And was it about the week out? Like 2 weeks out, I reached out to my coach and I said, hey, question. If I decide that I am going to switch to bikini for the 2017 season, will you still coach me? He's like, of course I will. And I said, okay, I'm going to make the switch. And I said, I have another secret. He's like, what? Let's hear it. I said, well, I prepped myself and I'm doing a show in 2 weeks. And he's like, what? So he goes, send me pictures right now. So I send him pictures and he put in all caps, oh my God, you are so, with like so many zeros, you are so bikini. And I'm like, fool, I told you this.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he was actually going down to San Antonio that week. This was like a Wednesday. He's like, I'm going to be in San Antonio for a show this weekend. Come down and compete. And I'm like, dude, it's like Wednesday. I haven't done anything with water. He's like, send me pictures in the morning, and I will. You'll place. Like, you look amazing. You're going to do the show. So the next morning, my suit strap broke. A whole bunch of stuff happened. And I'm like, dude, I'm getting nervous. You're making me nervous, and the suit broke. I think it's just not meant to be. So I did the shows that I had on deck to do, won them, and he's like, okay, kid, we're doing this. You are so bikini. We're going to hit the stage doing Bikini in 2017. And so, of course, to really know where you stack up, you kind of have to do the Pittsburgh Pro-Am, right? Because you have Sandy, you have Rope, you have Steve. You have all the head judges there. So if you really want to know where you stand in life, hit the Pittsburgh Pro-Am. And so we decided that I was going to, am I rambling too much? Is this too much answer?
No.
Okay. So
I'm liking this.
Okay. So 2017, we decided in May, okay, you're going to hit that stage. You're already nationally qualified, but this is about getting in front of those judges and seeing if they support this decision of you moving to bikini. And I had to come down about 13 pounds. So I was competing at about 143, 145 and figure,
Wow.
which really, to be competitive, I needed to be about 155, 160 against girls in my height class. And that was too much. And so I came down to about 130. And my coach hadn't seen me in person yet. So he gets there and he sees me in person for the first time. And he was just like, he's never said anything nice. Like, you look nice for him is like looking solid. That means you look amazing. That's about as good as it's going to get. And he comes to my room and I'm posing for him. And he's just like looking at me. He's just like, oh my God. He's like, it looks perfect. And I'm like, I didn't overreact in that moment. As soon as he left, I texted my husband. I'm like, oh my God, Damon just said I look perfect. And so he was like, just do masters. You have nothing to prove. You don't need to go up against those young girls. Just do masters. And, we just want to get in front of these judges. I'm like, no, I'm here. I'm going to do open and masters. So I did open and masters, one open, one masters, one masters overall.
Yes.
So he's like, okay. He's like, you're getting this pro card this year. And I'm like, well, now you're making me nervous.
Wait, was that at Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that was at Pittsburgh
Wow.
Pro-Am of 2017. And I honestly was never competing to turn pro because in my mind, I knew as a figure competitor, it really wasn't in the cards for me. So
Right.
I was legitimately content with trying to just make a top 5 at a national level. That was like my Olympia. I was fine with that because I knew deep down I wasn't willing to do what it was going to take for my physique to be competitive in figure. So chasing the pro card was never a thing. But then when he put that in my head, I'm like, is that even a thing? He's like, oh, you're turning pro this year. And so everybody knows you do well in Pittsburgh, you win, you're likely going to turn pro. You get top 3, you're likely going to turn pro. So that just kind of solidified our decision, or my decision, to turn to bikini. And so the rest was history after that.
Dang.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a ride.
Wow. There was also a lot of strategy in that I hope a lot of girls are taking notes on and golden nuggets from, because I think that was really
for sure
awesome of you to share that. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is such a cool journey that you've been on. And I love how you went for it yourself. Now, you did mention part of this was because your knees were starting to hurt, your back was starting to hurt. This was part of your disability. Do you mind sharing what your disability is?
Yeah, it's for my knees. It's on paper, it's for my knees, my TMJ, and my back. Specifically for my knees, I have like little to no cartilage, arthritis in both of them, so it's just bone on bone. My kneecaps are really loose. One of them kind of pops out of place and dislocates a lot. So it's partly genetics, and then it's partly all of the running and all that I had to do in the military, running in combat boots on hard cements, up hills, and that kind of thing. My back, I have the degenerative whatever disease or whatever. And so over time, with my knees being so bad, and so every other aspect of my body kind of having to pick up the slack, my back is getting worse, and it's actually really bad right now. So I have an appointment next week for it. But like to the point, like squatting's not an option. Please don't sneeze in the wrong position. Like it's really, really bad. So I'm just kind of, it's kind of a chronic pain I'm used to, so I don't even think about it anymore. It's just like, I don't take anything for it because I'm just so used to it. It's just a part of everyday life. So I don't necessarily take medication for anything. I just push through.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, thanks. I was really curious about that too. And that obviously was influence on your decision making. But what was also cool is that a lot of this is showing how you go after what you want. And
Hmm.
you're like, well, I'm gonna take the risk, I'm gonna do it. And it paid off
Yeah.
for you big time. So when you did switch, you did your Pittsburgh show, you did really well there. You eventually turned pro, and then when you turned pro, what do you think did it? Because it was like 3 national shows before you turned pro, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did what I did. What is it? Junior USA, I think. Yeah, well, I did Junior USA. No,
Mhm.
no, no, Junior Nationals. I don't remember what it was, but whatever show that was that June, we knew going in that that show wasn't for my look. Um, and he said that out the gate. He's like, yeah, it's kind of a waste of money. You're not gonna play. You probably won't even get top 10. And then I'm like, how dare you? But he's always just honest in that, and so that makes it so much easier though for me to like not feel any kind of way when the results. He's never been wrong in my case, other than telling me I shouldn't be bikini. Um, but so that was just
But he
kind of a
admitted
warm up.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was just kind of a warm up again to get in front of Sandy, because what girls have to realize, especially when there's so many bikini competitors, you have to get your face out there and you have to hit the right shows. And some shows, especially the ones that are national qualifiers, there's just, I'm not saying there's no point to it, but if you're kind of coming into this with a certain level of physique to where, you're going to be really competitive on a national level, you just need to be really strategic. And so I just did that show to I just made it as cheap as possible, room with some girls, and just kind of made it cheap as possible to kind of get into that show, to get in front of Sandy. I came in too small anyway, and she actually made a comment to that. My fighting weight is about 130 to 132, and I
Hmm.
was like 127, and that's just not a good look for me. I'm just too lanky and stringy for that. That just wasn't a good look for me. But that was just strategy. So I did that show, and then we turned around and did Team U. And Steve isn't necessarily a huge fan of my physique.
Okay.
Steve likes a lot of muscle, so
Yes.
he's not a huge fan of my physique. So I don't tend to do the best in front of him. I might do okay. And so I knew with Team Universe, it was gonna be iffy. And so I ended up getting 5th place in both my classes, which was good enough. Okay, I was seen, I placed, good enough. And then after that, I emailed Sandy for some judges' feedbacks in 2 weeks. Is there anything you think I can tweak or work on and that can help in the next 2 weeks, whether it's hair, suit, whatever? She gave me her feedback, and I came into Pittsburgh, the Masters Nationals, with that feedback, and I did over 35 and over 40, and I won both my classes. But what I really want to say about that though, and I want women to think about when they're doing these shows, is like, I know for a fact that by that point, my body was starting to look a little tired. And though it looked good, it wasn't at its best.
Yeah.
And even, I think it was Maximum Muscle, I was reading their commentary about me when I was on stage. And he even made the comment that Shonte Turner, number 584, I think, she's really, really pretty on stage. She definitely has a presence, but she's not the tightest. But she's, but presence alone, she's kind of still in the show. But her legs could be tighter, her midsection should be tighter. So all that being said, I still won both my classes and turned pro. So when, as women, we sit backstage, and there was definitely some girls back there that I was thinking like, oh shit, like I'm texting coach like, oh shit, I don't know about this class, because we get in our own head and we're seeing the competition, and I was realistic in that my physique was not at its best. Now at Team U, it was at its best, but 2 weeks later, it was starting, things were starting to happen. And I'm not one of those people that can diet for a long time. And, but it was my time. And if it's your time, it's your time. There's nothing anybody can do. If it's for you, it is for you. And so when girls get so down on themselves afterwards, and they're nitpicking themselves apart, like, oh, I knew I should have dyed my hair this color, or I chose these heels over that heel. Honey, it has nothing to do with that. They just didn't want it. Like, when it's your time, knowing that I was not the tightest person up there, and it was my time. And so I just really want women to realize that, like, when it's your time, it's your time. So there's no need to be mean to the competition. There's no need to be harsh on yourself, because there was nothing you could have necessarily done. It just wasn't your time. Or I firmly believe that.
Right. I love that. I think that that's really good insight for people too. Like instead of nitpicking and being like, oh, everything has to be perfect, why not
Mhm.
just like continue the path you're on and believe and trust in the
Exactly.
process and allow it to unfold when it's meant to?
Yeah.
Okay, so feedback from Sandy helped you to come in and bring what you needed to. Now, since entering the pro league, what has been some of the feedback you've gotten?
And so she actually mentioned that in that feedback. She said, actually for that, she said, honestly, there's nothing you need to do. Bring this package and you should be good. Like there's nothing you can do that's going to improve this package in 2 weeks. Done. But my weight kept dropping. So I did take that back to my coach and he's like, okay, what did you weigh in Pittsburgh? I'm like, 130. He's like, what did you weigh at this show? And I'm like, 127. We ain't going to do that. So it was like literally every single day I'm giving him my weight and we're adjusting. I'm eating more carbs and he's pulling back on this. And so it was literally a day-to-day thing trying to keep that weight up.
Yeah.
But she did say for the future, I would say on a pro stage, you definitely need to bring in bigger legs and be a little tighter. So, and that's been a struggle because obviously the knees and back, I can only, it's going to be a journey for me. It's not, I can't take an off season and leg press 300 pounds. So I'm going to have to do it the slow and steady way. So we'll see what this
Yeah.
season brings, but
You competing this year?
yeah, hopefully I'm trying to hit the stage in 8 weeks.
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah. What show are you doing?
I'm doing a Grand Prix with muscle contest.
Okay. I'm going to start with Minneapolis, April 4th, and
That's
then
when I'm
April.
competing. April 4th.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Nice. I'm definitely going to have to make sure I stay in your DMs and
Yes, we can
keep over
prep
what you're doing.
together.
Yes. And then I'm going to do the show, the Jay Cutler in Vegas.
I'm
And
going
then
to Vegas too,
are
but
you
not
doing
Jay
it?
Cutler. I'm not doing Jay Cutler, so
Oh.
we battle in the
And
desert.
then,
I gotta get in front of Sandy.
yeah, you absolutely have to get in front of her. And then I'm going to do the Pittsburgh Pro because I have not done that as a pro show. And it's like my bucket list show. And I feel like I can't retire until I do that show because that's my first overall. That's where, to me, my career would come full circle. And I just love that stage and that show. And I've done it probably 3 or 4 times as a NPC competitor. And I've always looked at the pros like, wow, it would be nice to grace that stage as a pro. So I'm going to do Pittsburgh Pro this year as well.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so excited for you. That's a great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's awesome. And I can't wait to see that happen and we'll prep together and it'll be really fun.
For sure. For
So,
sure.
this is a question that I think you could probably relate to just given what you've experienced with injuries, but more so in the fact that you had talked about how you had to manipulate your weight a lot. And one of our
Mm-hmm.
listeners actually wanted to know what you've done or what you do when you begin to plateau or maybe feel like you're plateauing.
When I start to plateau, because I know my body, I'm not a person that takes a lot of rest time. And I know everybody says take a weekly rest day. I don't. So when my weight starts to plateau, I know that's my body saying, okay, bitch, it's been 3 months, take a rest day. So I'll take a day off. I'm constantly switching up my fat burner brands. I switch them up week to week. So there's like 3 different brands that I tend to kind of just stick to those. And I like Liposide by Evogen. I used to love Phenaflex, but I don't think they make it anymore. I like the black bottle by Beauty Fit Onyx, I think it's called. And then I'll grab something that I've never tried before. And so each week I'll switch up my fat burner. As far as manipulating my weight when it comes to trying to get ready for a show, for me, it's always like, don't go too low. Literally, I try to stay out of it because I'll get my own head. So what he has me do is every morning he just has me send him my weight. And he's been working with me long enough now that he knows what 135 looks like on me. He knows what 135, 2 shows later, 3 shows into the season versus the first show of the season looks like. So first show of the season, he probably wouldn't be too concerned. 5th show of the season, 135, probably not so much a good look. So he'll either switch up he'll either give me a cheat meal that next day, or he will just give me more carbs that day. We don't really play with the water too much. My water is pretty much always the same. We don't really focus on sodium other than the day of, really. We don't manipulate that at all the day before or anything. The day of, I don't really have any sodium. But yeah, other than that, I just kind of stay out of it and let him deal with it. But it's more or less, he just feeds me more when my weight starts. He never really takes away my training, because he knows for me, mentally, I kind of have to keep that. He has said that, like, he used to be like really annoyingly passionate about my training and how I overtrain. And so maybe the last 2 years, I asked him, because he just let me do it. And I'm like, you didn't say anything about he's like, you know what? I have come to realize that with you, it stresses you out more. So it's easier just to let you do it. And then he just governs himself accordingly. So I'm like, oh, okay. So if he really is passionate about an off day, like he'd get mad about it, then I'll take an off day. But other than that, he just kind of lets me run amok, and then he just governs himself accordingly, just feeds me more or whatever.
Yes, exactly. I'm always like, my coach will take care of it, as long as I tell him
Yeah.
exactly what I'm doing, what's going on, he's going to take care of me. And then that takes a lot of the pressure off of us. Plus, if that's what
Mm-hmm.
works for you, right, then that's what works for
Exactly.
you. And I think that's interesting that you switch up your fat burners every week. I personally use Edge Sups, and I have used it every prep, and I love it so much. So if you are looking for one to try next, definitely try
Oh,
that one. Yeah, it's
yeah,
called
I
Turbo
will.
Slim Pro. It's really good.
Okay.
And I'm going to totally do a shameless plug, not just for you, but for everyone. Celeste 15 at checkout will save you money. But no, I actually genuinely only use that one, and I love it. And yeah, I just love
Yeah.
it. I don't get heartburn, and I don't get crazy jitters. I get energy and focus, but not the crazy jitters. And I always notice a difference when I start taking it.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
will be ordering that today. Perfect. Yeah. I
yes.
like to, my body is really adaptive. So I just kind of like to keep it guessing. So I really don't have, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, I really don't have plateaus per se.
Yeah, exactly. And I always tell myself too, because my weight will maybe stagnate for a little bit, and then I send
Mm-hmm.
a check in, and my coach changes things, and I'm just like along for the ride. Like I'm doing
Yeah.
what needs to
Mm-hmm.
be done, and then he makes the adjustments. I have a coach, so I don't stress about plateaus.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to stress about it. So I think that's cool. And there was only one other thing I really wanted to ask you about competing specifically, because I really want to talk to you about business, and I think a lot of girls can benefit from what we're going to get into.
Okay.
But as you know, I'm all about food relationships and helping competitors to make peace with food and have more fulfilling and healthy preps and improvement seasons. But what has your experience been with your relationship with food over the years of competing? Because you were even tracking and being super on point even before then. So I'm curious as to how maybe competing has impacted that relationship with food.
Well, I would be lying if I said that I did not have a period in my competition career to where I had an unhealthy relationship with food. And for me, that meant I was either binging, not in a weird, dark, in the closet kind of way, but just doing way too much, or dieting. There was no in between for me. And it was mainly because I would do so many shows a year before it was in style to do that many shows a year. Now bikini girls are doing freaking 9, 13 shows a year. But I would only have a very small window to kind of, and I love junk food. Like, I like healthy food a little bit. I hate vegetables for the most part. I don't eat I only enjoy like 4 vegetables, but I eat
I'll
them,
eat your veggies for you.
Yeah, oh, I hate vegetables. But so I would only have a short period of like 2 months to kind of get it all in. So then that 2 months would be filled with just like binge eating all the nachos and Taco Bell and all this crap. So going vegetarian has definitely helped that. But so there was a period where it was, in my mind, a little too out of hand, and it was starting to affect decisions I made, as in like hanging out with friends, and I'd be in an irritated mood going to my son's football game because my husband's gonna be sitting there eating nachos, and I can't have it. And so I did take a break for 2 years actually, from 2011 to I came back in 2000 into 2013, because number one, I was finishing my master's degree and work, and I was coaching girls, and my relationship with food, it was just all too much. So I did take a break. But I feel like now I have finally, and for me it has taken time, maturity in age and maturity in the sport, to just kind of get to a place with this, but of just accepting the simple fact that the food is not going anywhere. So what, you don't eat pizza for a month? It's not going to leave the earth. Like, I can eat it in another month. And counting macros now, I was telling Damon that counting macros now removes that element of guilt when you eat something that's, quote, off plan. And he's like, 100%. Like, if you feel like you have to have something sweet, okay, plug it into your macros. That may mean the next 2 meals is just protein and veggies, but oh well. Versus if you're not following that plan, there's that element of guilt when you're eating, you know, not even something that's a big deal, Quest bar that's not on plan, and it's, you know, it's sugar and, you know, whatever. So I did go through that, and I don't think I'm to a point where I'm not susceptible to it, but I'm just kind of, you know, so so engulfed in this whole vegetarian thing. I think it'd be a while if I got to that point again. But I did have a little bit of a phase of just kind of like this unhealthy binging or dieting, and I knew early on that wasn't good, and so I took a break from the stage. I have no problem taking a break from the stage. The stage isn't going anywhere, and like I said, I know this is not the health industry; it's more of the fitness industry. But you can do, you know, you can do what you can to try to be somewhat healthy, getting ready for a show, and I definitely try to take that approach.
Exactly. Yeah, you can definitely consider your health in the process of um,
Exactly.
building your best body. And I think, you know, the guilt of going off plan happens for a lot of girls. I think it also happens for girls who do follow macros, because some people get into this, well, I won't even say some people, but like a lot of the girls that I work with, like they struggle even following macro diets. And I think that
Mhm.
it's coming from, you know, beliefs about food. It's also coming from the restriction of it. And then almost like,
Mhm.
what's the word I'm looking for? Like having to figure out exactly what they're going to put in their macros for the day just to work in one little treat, and then they end up binging, or maybe they have been restricting it. So there's so much that goes into our relationship with food, and I think at the end of the
For
day,
sure.
it's like, well, are you enjoying your meal plan or your macros that you're creating a meal plan out of? And then also, do you understand that every decision you make needs to come from a conscious place and a mindful place? And like you said, with time, I think it gets better, but also with focusing on it. And you took 2 years off
Mhm.
to focus on it and make it a
Mhm.
priority. And I think that that is something more girls need to do, because when you actually give yourself the freedom to live and make those choices on your own, make the choice to
Mhm.
track macros or follow a meal plan or eat, you know, a certain way outside of competing, it becomes empowering versus feeling like planned and restrictive or calculated all the time. And I think that that can go a long way. So I love that you did that.
100%.
Yeah, and like you said, with counting macros, like I've always followed meal plans, but this past prep, if I wanted to replace something on my meal plan, I would just plug in the macros, and then I would have
Exactly.
and I was like, this is fine. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. But in the past, I would have freaked out. I would have been like, I can't do that, and I have to follow everything. And now it's like, I'm going to get to the stage eventually. Like you said, it's not going anywhere. And I'm going to need to do it the way that I can do it. That's going to help me to
Mhm.
get it for the long term. And I think that's
Exactly.
the key. That's why so many girls, you know, end up giving up competing, because they didn't take away that an approach that was sustainable for them or enjoyable.
And some people sacrifice so much for the stage, and I'm just like, I mean, at the end of, or for me at least, at the end of the day, this is just a hobby. Like, you stop competing for 2 months or a year, no one even remembers your name. So please don't give up life and limb behind getting to the stage. Like, it's supposed to enhance your life, not take away from it. And that's why people get so upset at the end result if they don't place or win. And I'm just like, yeah, when you sacrifice that much, I could see that, but for me, it's just not that serious. Like, it's not going to be a sacrifice that, to where if I don't get the end goal, I'm putting that end goal in quotes, that I feel like none of it was worth it. For me, that is just a process in my growth. Like, when I was literally working on the swap trap, I was competing that whole time, because again, it was just an end goal, and I was using different waist trimmers, and I was, trying to build my, as Crystal put it the other day, build my tribe. And so the end goal wasn't necessarily the stage. That was just one of the many steps to get to the swap trap. And so once that actually launched, that's when I stepped away from the stage, which I took all of 2019 off to focus on trying to build my brand and work on my brand. But Yeah, some people they just do too much.
Yeah, and it's like being mindful of what you're doing, like how much you're investing into competing and how is it actually impacting you? And like from what place
Mhm.
is that really coming from? Because for some people it's not coming from a positive place. It is coming from disordered eating or negative body image or
Yeah.
feeling like they're not good enough otherwise, or okay, this is the only identity I have for myself. So I think, yeah, making sure it's coming from a good place and also being able to step away and know that you're still okay and you still like the lifestyle
Mhm.
and you're still good.
Because a lot of people, I'm finding that a lot of people start competing because they're escaping something. And for me, that was
Mm-hmm.
never the case. It was just like my life anyway, so it was just, added bonus. That's like I love shoulder strap purses. However, if there's a little arm hook on there, then that's just an added bonus. But yeah, a lot of people that are escaping something. And I find that to be the case with a lot of competitors, which just really breaks my heart. I mean, that could be a good thing and a negative thing, but
Yes.
it just breaks my heart sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It can go both ways for sure. And it
Yeah.
really comes down to like, where it's coming from, like, we
Mhm.
both said. And I think that it's cool that when you did take that time off, it was really to focus on your business. And I wanted to talk to you about your invention and how you really got it off the ground. Because
Okay.
Turn Fit products were inspired by your disgust with not having immediately clean mats or waist trimmers, right?
Yes, basically.
That's crazy that you were able to like take this thought and turn it into an invention and a real physical product. So why, let me ask you two questions. One, why do you use a waist trimmer? And then two, how did you go about developing your product line as a whole? Like what was the first step? You really did it on your own.
So why I like waist trimmers? I'm a big proponent of waist trainers and waist trimmers, and I wear both during prep. Number one, I don't have a naturally small waist, and so my waist getting small and ready for the showcase effort. I think I'm not a natural sweater either, so just adding the waist trimmer obviously is going to create more sweat, increase the circulation in your midsection area, which can be a fat burning aid. And it helps pull that excess water. It helps detox, all of that good stuff. And so I'm just like, literally, I did a picture of like me just waking up and then me doing cardio and sitting in the side of my waist trimmer. And people are like, well, I mean, honestly, you dieted for a week. I'm like, no, it was an hour later, dude. I just did cardio. Like, it literally pulls that excess water that I personally have a hard time shedding naturally. So I've been wearing waist trimmers well before the swap trap was even a thought. I just love waist trimmers. Waist trainers, I did not wear them initially, and I started wearing them when I got with Bombshell. And literally, my waist gets about a half an inch smaller for my shows than when I wasn't wearing waist trainers. And I attribute that to the fact that because they're so tight and a little uncomfortable, I'm constantly thinking about my core. I'm constantly sitting up straight. I'm constantly holding my stomach in and kind of engaging my core throughout my whole day. Now, over time, again, I'm an old head. I've been in this for a long time. Over time, I found that my core had weakened a little bit in the sense of strength, but not in the way it looks. But because I started relying on the waist trainer to kind of do the work for me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So all I did was I still wear it, but I only wear it for about 5 hours out the day. And I put like a thermogenic lotion underneath it. And I just wear it for 5 hours out the day. During those 5 hours, I'm constantly, holding my stomach in and kind of engaging my core. And then I just take it off. So then that way I'm relying on myself and my core muscles to do it for the rest of the day versus just letting the trainer just kind of suck me in.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as my invention, what I like to tell a lot of women that, or people in general, I guess, but women approach me more, that want to start a business is they initially think they can't do it because a lot of women think they can't do it because it just seems like a big, huge undertaking. And then some women feel like, they don't have the finances for it. And because when I entered this, it wasn't supposed to be a business. I was just looking for a solution for myself. I was naive in what it would take financially to build this business. So therefore, I kind of went in fearless because it wasn't supposed to be a business. I'm just trying to find a heat impacts it, and you have to kind of see, like, especially when you're dealing with chemicals in people's skin, you have to kind of see, like, in different room temperatures, does that affect the quality of it? And, you know, just so much, but just take the financial aspect of it, because there's something you could do today with $10. So for me, when I initially thought about the swab trap, I was like, okay, what materials absorb? I wasn't even thinking from the bacterial standpoint at that point. My biggest thing was it's never drying time for round 2. And so I found myself buying multiple waist trimmers because it was never drying time. And so I ordered all these different materials. I went and did a little research looking at material properties. And then I just ordered, like, I think 5 different materials. And I took it to a seamstress and had her just make it for me. And I was using it, and I'm like, I don't like this, I don't like that. And so, okay, I like this, I'll use this. And so my husband saw me using it, and it was actually, I still have it, because once Turn Fit gets to where I want it to be, I want to show people what the very first swab trap, before I even had the name swab trap, looked like. It's a disaster. So he saw me using it, and he thought it was pretty cool, and was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Where'd you get that, Amazon? And I'm like, no, I made it because I really think this is disgusting. And the light bulb went off in his head first. And he's like, babe, I think you might be on to something. Like, I wouldn't use it, because at the time he didn't wear trimmers. He thought that was a girl thing. And he's like, seriously, like, I'm like, you think? He's like, no, babe, I really think you should do something with this. Like, if it bothers you, it has to bother at least 1,000 people. Like, I really think you should do something with this. And I'm like, well, you know how expensive that is? And he's like, don't worry about the money. We'll finance the whole project. Like, don't worry about that. Take that off the table. What would you do next? I'm like, well, now I'm feeling pressure. And so that's kind of how it started for me. Did you want to throw a question in there, or?
Wow. No, I'm listening. I'm taking it in. I'm
Okay.
curious after that, because you didn't have investors, you didn't have support of, other people necessarily outside of your husband, of course, who were like, yeah, I'll back you up with this. So what was your first move to really get it off the ground after you developed, like, the prototypes?
So from there, I started looking up, just thinking about the different materials I was using, because I didn't necessarily know who or what kind of manufacturer I would go to for this product. But then I just started thinking, okay, you have mesh and you have microfiber this. And so I'm like, okay, so it's just like apparel. So then I just started looking around for different apparel manufacturers. I'm figuring with the material types, they could build any kind of pattern I need. And so I ended up going with one in Austin. I went and met with her, and she's a female business owner. And so just talking with her and going through the process, she made me feel really comfortable, because you're really taking a risk when you have something that you're trying to invent, that you're going to try to get a patent on, that is going to be a really good idea, because you don't want someone to steal your idea.
Right.
And you're not going to be able to get a manufacturer to sign an NDA. So you're really taking a risk. And I just felt really comfortable with her. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take the chance with her. And so she was like, obviously because I'm a smaller manufacturer, I can only produce so much for you. But the goal is to get you into a major factory, probably overseas, so you get more bang for your buck. But we'll start here. So it's gonna cost you more. However, you'll own everything. Every pattern will be like, you will own everything. When you get into a manufacturer, they kind of they'll take your pattern, but they source all the materials, they source everything, and you don't really have any control over it. So then if you get kicked out of that factory, you walk away empty-handed. So she's like, obviously the goal is to get into a big manufacturer like that, but if you have to start over from scratch, you always have everything. Material costs, you source it yourself, so when they're kind of playing you and throwing numbers at you that don't make sense. So I was like, okay. And so she was a good mentor in that regard. But because initially my quantities, the different sourcing vendors that she sent to me were like huge, massive quantities, and we wasn't on that level, and we're still not on that level. So I had to be very resourceful in trying to find manufacturers that would, or vendors or sourcing vendors that would do small quantities for what I was trying to produce. But from there, so she ended up she never knew what she was actually making. I forgot to mention that. I never told her what it was for, because again, she seemed nice, but you could only, trust so much. So initially she ended up making, I want to say 3 prototypes for me. And by the third one, she was kind of costing me more money, because they were not knowing what they were making. They were adding Velcro and doing all this stuff to it and thinking it was a good idea. So eventually when they got close enough to the pattern that I was going to go with, I ended up telling them what I was making and sent them a waist trimmer and was like, this is what I'm making. So please don't add anything, because I don't want to keep paying for prototypes. And they were like, oh, okay, now we get it. So what I thought was going to be the swap chop is not actually what ended up being released. It was actually 2 parts, and it folded over, and it was a little bulkier. It was the whole thing. And so I got with my attorney, which I have a patent attorney and a trademark attorney. And that was another thing. I knew out the gate what I wanted the swap chap to be, but I didn't have a name for it yet. So I ended up doing the trademark under TurnFit. And TurnFit, that name came about. My son thought of that, and he's like, okay, Turner's Fitness, whatever. So he just kind of did the logo TurnFit and sent it to me. And I'm like, done. I love it. I loved
That's
it out
awesome.
the gate. Yeah, so he actually thought of that. And so once we figured out what I thought was going to be the final swap trap, and it was really out of just, I was just over it. It's, it's been like 2 years I've been working on this. I'm like, I'm just going to release this. I'm over it. My attorney actually was like, okay, now this is the first of its kind on the market. So you have to accept the fact that someone's going to try to steal this, and it's probably going to be a bigger company. And so I want you to take a week before we file this patent and think about what they could do to make it better. Obviously, they're going to make it cheaper, but what can they do to make it better? And I'm like, no. He's like, no, take a week, think about it. I'm like, okay, fine. So literally, I'm in the car with my husband, and I'm telling him what, Kevin was saying. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, want me to take this extra time. I just don't feel like it. I'm over it. And I'm like, the only thing someone could do to make it better would be, A, B, and C. And then my husband just looks at me, and I'm like, fuck. That's so much better. So I had already paid my attorney fees for that particular patent or that design. I had already paid all the drawers for that design. I'm like, damn it. So I went back to my attorney, and I'm like, shit, I thought of something that would be so much better. So now I have to go back to my manufacturer. We have to make the new design. So I have to pay for that. And he advised, he's like, if it's money's not an issue, if I were you, I would buy the patent on both designs. That way you have a little bit more protection. So that's what I ended up doing. I bought the original design that I thought I was going to go with, and then I did the patent on the actual, what we know today to be the slap chop. I bought the patent on that as well. But I don't know how much protection it is, but let's just knock on wood that it's enough. But that's kind of how I got started. And I wasn't, and some people, when they're looking at social media and what they think other businesses are doing, they get caught up in the hype. I wasn't shy in the fact that I am building this business and this brand off of a budget. So my very first swap trap production, I only made 200 of them. Because I'm like, I don't know how well this is going to sell. And so obviously, and so some people think like that's something they probably wouldn't want to admit, or they're embarrassed, or want people to think that they're just, selling, 1,000 a day. No, TurnFit's not there yet. So my initial manufacturing order, I only made 200 of them, and then I increased to 500. And so you just have to kind of be honest in where you're at in your business. And I don't want business partners. So I was not shy about the fact that I am working on budget. And my whole project teams know everything they try to throw at me. How much is that going to cost me? What's included in this? Have I gone over my limit for this meeting yet? Because I'm not paying anymore. So I work on the budget because, and honestly, TurnFit's not there yet. It's not a profitable business yet. Is it selling? Yes. But have I gotten my money back of what I put into it? No. And so you just have to be patient, and you have to be realistic. And you can't be shy or embarrassed in the fact that you are just simply working on the budget. And again, you have to be really patient with your brand and what it is you're trying to build, and not rush the process.
Yeah. And what a amazing parallel that draws to, the sport that you're in, and the fact that it requires a lot of patience and you can't rush the process. And if you want the end result to be really amazing, you have to be really committed and okay with that taking maybe more time or more effort or more consideration. And it sounds like you did a lot of that for your business and are still doing that. So I think it's a great lesson of patience and also trusting the process, but also going after things you want and, not half-assing it.
And I'm a big proponent of paying it forward too. Like, I really believe you reap what you sow. And so being a female business owner, I try to empower other female businesses in any way I can. I mean, again, TurnFit isn't this huge company, But when it comes to like my monthly promotional photo shoots, I try to hire other up and coming female photographers because I
Yeah.
want to help them try to build their brand and, shed a little light on them. And I try to hire, makeup artists that aren't like, the big top ones that everybody's heard of. I try to empower businesses like that. So I try to reach out and just work with other female companies and brands just to try to pay it forward in any way that I can. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot to give, but what I do, I try to,
Definitely. No, I love that. And I think that empowering other women is always awesome, empowering anybody. And I've always wondered actually with like what do you do on a normal day to day being so busy with business, but also with competing in your family and everything?
So I recently left corporate America. I got laid off in October. But before that, my day started. It used to start at about 3:30 in the morning. I wake up, I go to the gym, I come back, I prep my breakfast for the day. My meals are already prepped, and then I head out to work. I like to go to work early, and then me and my husband would take turns with shipping. Mainly, he would do shipping, but on our lunch break, we ship out all the packages. And that was kind of our grind. But now that I'm not in corporate America anymore, I decided I would take this opportunity to try to find to spend that time with TurnFit. And so what I've really been trying to do and trying to make a conscious effort for 2020 to do so. Now my day actually starts at 2:30 in the morning. That's when my alarm clock goes off, but my biological clock kind of wakes up at 2 o'clock anyway.
What
But
time
I
do you
like
go
to
to
try to go
bed?
through. I get in bed about 6, and I'm kind of watching TV, and I might fall asleep at 7, I might fall asleep at 9, but somewhere in between. I just don't really require a lot of sleep. And so actually, I just realized this morning, that I've been taking Core 21, which is like a natural sleep aid with First Form, and it puts you, I guess, into like a deeper REM sleep. However, the problem is I wake up so early, my body, because I've taken that, isn't quite ready to get up, but I get up.
Yeah.
And so it actually makes me more tired. So I got to figure something out with that. Either just don't take it, or I don't know that I can sleep in until 7 in the morning. So I
Take
don't
it
know.
earlier?
Well, that's a thought. Yeah, if I have an early day, yeah, I can take it earlier. That's true. I might take it at 3 today. But duh. See?
Collaboration.
But yeah. But sometimes I may not be available to take it earlier, and I don't want to be
Yeah.
out and about at a booth or something to take it at 4. But yeah. So, but now my days have just been I've put myself on a personal schedule starting this year, because like not working before, I was kind of living my best life. Now I'm like, I need to get back on a regimen. So again, I wake up at 2:30, kind of go through emails, so I can kind of like plan out what I'm going to do during the day while I'm in the sauna. I'm doing better with putting everything on the calendar, because I typically try to just remember everything. And then this year, because I'm starting a new TurnFit project, which I'm working on my compression line, I am trying to, from a business aspect, not spend as much money and take advantage of free promotional opportunities like booths and things like that. So I have been every day determined to reach out to a media outlet every day, or talk to some type of business owner like local gyms or whatever, and try to find places that I can have a booth at or whatever. So literally, I wake up, go to the gym, train twice a day. I try to go to the gym at 2:30 in the morning. I try to hit round 2 around 11 or 12. And I try to work on TurnFit till about 4 o'clock, and then I shut that down, and then it's just kind of like me time.
Awesome. I love that. And okay, so how, because you evolved a lot in competing, and it sounds like you've also evolved a lot as a business owner. So how have you and your business evolved together?
So I am not this is the biggest growth I think I feel that I have noticed. I'm not a natural salesman. Like, I actually tried to do real estate. I lasted 6 months. Do you want to buy it? No, I'm gone. Like, I'm not gonna try to convince you. Like, that's just not my personality. And I feel like I'm harassing people. And so initially with TurnFit, I struggled with that, like selling myself basically. And I hadn't found, and I still haven't found my niche in how to. I don't really like talking about myself. I feel like it's bragging. And so what a lot of different mentors are telling me is that people are going to support you because they support Shonte. And so there's a story there, and you're an awesome person, and you're a person that people want to support, but you don't talk about yourself. You just kind of lead in with your product, and then people feel like they're being sold to and they don't want to do it. So focus more on yourself and your story. But for me, that's so hard. So I'm evolving in the sense of now I'm starting to get it and relate it a little bit, and try to just like be okay with patting myself on the back with the things that I've accomplished, and be okay with talking about myself, to where I don't want to vomit. And so I'm growing in that respect of just being a little bit, people think I appear to be so strong, and I do have, a pretty assertive personality, but when it comes to like that sales pitchy thing, I clam up a little bit. It's just really not my thing. I don't even know what it is. I think it's just not my personality, but I'm getting better. I see a change. I have a very long way to go, but I'm getting better with just kind of telling my story and being okay and sharing my accomplishments. Because to me, it comes off as a little braggadocious, and I don't like to do that. But I'm just trying to get better with being okay with sharing that with people, because it's just sharing. I talked to Monica Brandt at a it was like a fitness spiritual camp thing that I did back last year, and I was telling her I kind of talked to the group about my product and whatever, and during in the middle of that, she goes, "You look really pretty," and I kind of looked at her like, well, that's not inappropriate time for that. And so, but it made me laugh, and then it made me loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, she's like, "Well, you seemed a little, nervous, and that's why I did that." But she's like, I said, "Well, I'm not a salesman. Like, it's so hard for me." And she's like, "Don't sell it, share it." And it was literally just that simple, her saying that to me. And I'm like, oh my God, as simple as that is, don't sell it, just share it. So that has literally just, and I have no problem taking direction and taking little nuggets from people like that. But that has really, just that small little thing has made a huge difference with me at my booths. Like, I will let multiple people walk past because I just don't want to, be that person in your face. But her just saying that and just kind of sharing that, like I told this one lady that happened to be advertising. She's in advertising and marketing. And I got all the way through my spiel. And at the end, I said that I invented it. And she's like, hold on. Now I'm going to buy it just because you invented it. She goes, you need to lead with that. You're leading with the materials and what it does and all that. And I don't even wear waist trimmers. But had you led with, my name is Shonte, I invented this product, the fact that you're female is black, I would have bought it out the gate. So she's like, don't be afraid to just talk about you just a little bit. And I'm like, I still struggle with that. But just even her kind of a complete stranger reminding me of that is, it's growth. I'm working on it. But I'm trying to get better with that. Yeah.
No, I love that. And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Exactly.
You've come on here, and we've gotten to hear about you and who you are and your beliefs and the way you've approached your business as well as life and competing, and it's been really cool. And I believe that in business and in general in life, people invest in other people, and I love that you're embracing that as well. And with sales, I used to feel really uncomfortable about it, but as my business grew, my business mission, and I really honed in on my ideal clients and who I really wanted to help and serve, and the work, it's really the work I'm doing now. I have really just been like, I have to sell it, because sales in this sense to me is service. I would be doing a disservice if I didn't say, hey, competitors, you need to work on your relationship with food. And if you do, I'm the person to do that with. Or, hey, you have a negative body image, come to me. Or mindset work, or personal development, self-love, all of these things that if I didn't put out, where would they be? So to me, it's like sales is an act of love. It's an act of service. And it's something that if I ask myself, what happens if I don't? What happens if I don't fight for the person who reached out to me, or fight for the person who had an inquiry? And I think even with a product-based business, it goes the same way. You have a product that serves it.
And hearing you say that is just like, and I'm still honestly struggling with that. Like you said, you have to figure out who is your base that you want to help? And to me, I'm thinking my customers are built for me. The waist trimmer world is $1 million industry. So if you wear a waist trimmer, you hate the post-workout mess. I don't care who you are. Now, whether you're willing to invest in that, that's different. But if you wear waist trimmers, you want a slap chap in your life. My audience is, but it's really just not that simple.
It's
And
not,
like,
I
just
know.
like you said, this people still want to, even though it's just a product of, you know, a slap chat, and most people, a lot of people may not even wear them, but they would still buy it just in support of Shonte. But like, there was this lady, I was at EOS Fitness, and she walked by, and I actually wasn't going to say anything to her, but our eyes just kind of locked, and I smiled, and she was like, "Oh my God, your smile is so pretty." So she comes over. So I'm like, "Hi." And so she was like, "What do you have here?" So I was like, "Well, you know, I invented this product." And even that just, and now I know to start with that. And so she's like, "Oh my God, I've never met an inventor." And so she goes, "Can I shake your hand?" I'm like, "Well, sure." And so I shake her hand, and so I give her the whole spiel of how it came about and whatever. And just from that, and her just talking to me, she ended up buying 3 Yo Trap bundles and 3 Slap Trap
Aw.
bundles. I know, and I'm just like, her daughter was having a baby shower, and her daughter wanted something that wasn't for the baby, and she loved yoga, so she bought her that. That was kind of how that got started. But we ended up, I only had 2 Yo Traps on me, so I had to meet her later to give her that third one. And so I exchanged numbers with her, but then she sent me the sweetest text message about an hour after we talked. And I'm just like, wow, it was so sweet, and that she got all of that out of that brief encounter. 15 minutes of talking to me, she got all of that, and it was all true about my personality. But I was just like,
Yes.
wow. And God always just puts like little, you know, when there's just, I'm starting to have a little bit of stuff down, He always sprinkles just enough in there, just to kind of like make you be like, okay, Shonte, you got this.
Yes, exactly. And you never have to worry about being a sleazy salesperson because you're not a sleazy person. It's not your style
Yeah.
anyway. So when you take like your approach and you use what you've been given and your gifts, then it always pays off.
Hmm.
I love to hear that, and I'm really glad that you shared all of that too about your business, and for being vulnerable with us as well. And I would love if you could share. Usually, I like to end the episodes by asking for the best advice that you have. So if you could share your best advice for someone who's never competed before but wants to compete, and then your best advice for someone who's on their road to pro.
If you want to compete and you're on the fence about it, I would say number one, figure out your why. And if your why is solely just to win, I would highly recommend you find another avenue to escape whatever it is you're trying to escape, because this sport is so humbling, and it's so rewarding at the same time. So you may be rewarded but never awarded. So you just have to kind of like go into this with that mindset and don't expect anything. And if you're not already confident or you have some type of eating disorder, I would say this is the wrong industry for you, and find another outlet. But if none of that applies to you, it can be the most rewarding thing you've ever done. You'll meet some of the most awesome people that you probably would have never had the opportunity to meet, because we come from all over to compete, and it can really add a lot of value to your life, health and fitness-wise, and just all other aspects. For someone that's on their road to pro, be very realistic about your physique, and because honestly, not everybody is meant to turn pro. Not everybody have the genetic makeup to turn pro. If I'm being honest, that's just my opinion. So be realistic in that. Get with a really good, knowledgeable coach. That goes for any aspect, whether you're just starting or you're trying to go pro. Be with a very knowledgeable coach, not only in the nutrition and fitness aspect of it, but that knows the sport, because the right coach knows what judges like what look on what day. And so you just want, I mean, we don't want time wasted here. And be very strategic about the shows you do, because it's a lot we're putting our bodies through. And so if you're on that road to pro, meaning you're competitive on a national level, be very strategic about the shows you're doing, and burn no bridges. None. I don't care if it's just the girl backstage with you, because you never know what competitor is going to be the next judge. You don't know what competitor knows the judges, so burn no bridges. And that's just not, good human behavior anyway, but burn no bridges in this sport, because it will all come back full circle, trust me.
I love that. I think that that's awesome advice, and I just appreciate you sharing all of that. And I know that there's been a lot of value on this call, and I really hope that everybody listening feels the same way as I do and has enjoyed this as much
Thank
as I have.
you.
Of course, and I want everyone to be able to reach out to you. Thank you. Maybe even learn more about TurnFit products. So, can you let everybody know how they can connect with you?
Yes, if you are wanting to know more about the TurnFit products, go over to my website, which is turnfitproducts.com. And if you want to follow my prep journey this season and see what daily foolishness your girl is up to, follow me on Instagram, which is Turners with the S underscore turnfit underscore IFBB Pro.
Awesome. I love it. So I'm going to make sure I put all of those links in our show notes page. So to everyone
Thank
listening,
you.
that's, of course, and that's always going to be on www.celestial.fit/podcast. And if you're listening to this immediately, Shonte's episode will be right at the top. If you're listening to this in the future, after another episode has already come out, just scroll to the category section and you'll see her name there. But otherwise, Shonte, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time today. And yeah, just everything you shared. Thank you. And thank you
Thank you
for
so
setting
much for
our
the
country
opportunity.
as well.
Thank you.
Of course. And to everybody listening, thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode. Your shares on your stories always mean a lot to myself and the athletes too. And then I appreciate it when you guys rate, review, and subscribe. It goes a long way for getting the show out to even more people who can benefit from it and enjoy it alongside you. So thank you guys so much. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you are listening to this podcast episode. Just make it awesome.
Thank you. I'll see you on that competition road.